love the here we go, and we don't.
Well, I think we did. I think we did. I think we
Okay.
went. I think we went somewhere. I think something happened. I mean, obviously, as always, we require some kind of confirmation of our very existence.
Okay.
Existence confirmed.
Okay, cool.
There's like a
Hi.
there's like a weird little three blue dots coming from your.
Yeah.
I think
It's because I'm using a teleprompter that has an internal reflection off of the
off the glass.
godforsaken light.
Okay,
So
okay,
you know
okay.
the stupid light that turns on to
Yeah,
tell you you're recording?
yeah.
I need to take my teleprompter apart and put a piece of painter's tape over that. So this weekend there will be a Star Strider stream dedicated to
Fixing
fixing stupidities.
fixing a teleprompter. I've got the best teleprompter. I probably wouldn't work for
Which one
what
do you
you
have?
need. I've got two. I've got like a big one that I used to use for before we found this one. So the one that I found,
Uh-huh.
it's a little plastic box with a piece of the special glass.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
about this big, and then it has a mount that goes onto the filter for a DSLR.
Hmm.
And so it just bolts onto the front of my camera like a little bit
And you put
bigger.
your phone in it?
Yeah, and then you put your phone inside of it. And so the phone
Yeah.
acts like a teleprompter. Then I got a remote control for the phone so I can speed up and slow down the tip, because that, like, I used to use a teleprompter and go at this, like, we'd find out whatever was the right speed, and then it would just
Oh God.
go right. It would go at that
Yeah.
speed, and it was terrible, and it was
Yeah.
really hard for me to just talk naturally. And the
Yeah.
moment I could hold the remote control and then just pause when I needed to pause the prompt, then I could chew the scenery as I was doing my presentation, and it changed everything. So it's a huge step.
Yeah.
If anybody is um, using a teleprompter, but they don't have any kind of control over it themselves, makes a huge difference.
So I'm doing something very similar but bigger. We have I mocked one up out of a piece of glass from a picture frame and a bunch of cardboard, and so I said mocked it up. It does get better.
Oh, okay.
And once I figured out just how big and what angles everything needed to be, there's great teleprompter
Yes.
software. It's the same stuff you're probably
Yeah.
using for your phone.
Yeah.
And so I built one out of cardboard and got all the sizing perfectly. And then we have a glow forge.
Right.
So we ordered the acetate, built it out of acetate and super glue, and put a tripod mount on the bottom,
Uh-huh.
screwed it onto the tripod, and it has a shelf behind the tilted piece of glass
Yeah.
that my webcam goes on. It has a slidey thing on the back that has a hole, or it has a slot just right for the webcam cable to go
That's
out.
awesome.
So the webcam is built into it,
Right.
and it just was the cost of the acetate and the electricity and one nut that allows us
Yeah.
to, and it's like we cut a slot perfectly for the nut that goes onto the tripod and glued the nut
That's
in.
amazing.
Yeah, it's super rugged,
Hmm.
and the only problem I have is I need sandbags for the tripod legs because I have a 70-pound dog.
I have some sandbags. You could just buy them. You just buy them empty, and then you just fill them with sand.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't live someplace where you can readily get
Go to the
sand.
beach. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, we went down to the beach, filled a bunch of bags with sand, left them out to dry, and then just tossed them in the into the bags.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the cheapest option, and it's probably what I'm eventually going to do, is to just go get some bags of fish tank rocks at the pet store.
Yeah.
But that's not currently an option. So yeah, I have some old blue jeans I can tear apart and make sandbags out of with fish tank rocks. But life is short.
Yeah.
And that just hasn't happened
Yeah.
yet.
No,
So
no, no.
occasionally we get camera quakes that are induced by the dog.
That's funny. Yeah, we've had those too. It's funny, even though we are trapped at home, can't go out, I am still not finding that I have enough time every
Oh God,
day.
no.
And
No.
the thing that I've had to throw overboard is obsessive looking at information about the coronavirus. I've had
Yes.
to throw that overboard because I don't have time to stay on top of every single development now, which is, I think, good. That's a positive step in my mental health, is that
Yes.
I am doing it less. I only spend maybe half an hour a day sitting beside Carla going, "Oh, did you hear this? Oh, did you hear that?" And we'd sort of share this, today's horrific information, and then
Yeah.
and
So
then
I just listened to Rachel Maddow as a podcast in the evening
yeah,
and then lie awake in bed for an hour. I really need to start listening to her in the morning because she
right,
will be more effective than coffee.
yeah, yeah,
Because she has a rundown of everything I kind of wish I didn't actually understand going on in my country. Uh,
yeah,
but now that it looks like it's probably going to become endemic in our population, which means the only way to eradicate it is through a vaccine.
yes,
It's just not worth my energy.
yeah,
Because I could still hope and pray and inspire that people would shelter in place and do the things
yeah. Just takes two
necessary
weeks.
to stop it in its
Yeah, two
tracks.
weeks. That's it. Just take 2 weeks, and you could wipe it out away from the whole
But
planet.
humans suck.
I know you think about that too, right? It's like every person that doesn't stay at home means the rest of us have to stay at home longer.
Well, and I at this point, it's going to be until we have a vaccine or until we have an antibody test that allows people
Yeah,
to basically before you go into a building get tested because there is such a high rate of asymptomatic
yeah,
people who are still capable of spreading the
yeah. I
disease.
think we'll
So
get to. I mean, we'll get to a place like China or like Singapore. Even Singapore had a bit of a flare up in the last week,
yeah,
but we'll get to this point where there's regional lockdowns as the disease is found in certain areas. There will be
right.
testing like crazy. There will be antibody tests so people can get certified that they are safe to work and restart our economy, because we're going to need those people.
That will happen in your country. That will not happen in mine.
Getting the antibody test?
Well, in a timely manner.
Yeah.
Trump came out today and said that the federal government is not here to help the states.
Sure, but again, I mean, we talked about this before, right? Again,
Yeah,
back to me being the Canadian fan of a
capitalist.
capitalist, and you
Yeah.
the American socialist. But the U.S. is doing an incredible job of ramping its testing, and it is also developing faster tests that can happen in 15 minutes, blood tests. They're developing antibody tests. So I think you're
So
going to be shocked. I mean, it's going to be awful what happens, but I think you're going to be
have you
amazed.
read about those 15-minute tests?
Yeah, they don't work to do vast amounts. So they can give one
Right.
person a
You can do
15-minute test. Yeah, but
right.
sure. But like, that's just step one, and then step two is they do 1,000 at a time. So don't worry, it's coming, it's coming. Just hang in there for all of us. Anyway, let's talk about space astronomy. I want to say hi to a bunch of people: Andrew Planet, Andy Cowley, Beth Johnson, Colin Jones, Coy Wagoner, David Moskrop, DPI 209, Dustin King, Kira H, Linda Williams, Mitzvah Gollum, Nancy Graziano, Raj Luthra, Rich Wilson, Arjone, Tesla Ranger, Yamagachi Sun, and then a whole bunch of you who said hello that I missed at the beginning, and I apologize because we were blah 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 talking. So
Well, thump.
was that from a dog?
No, so my monitor was in the edge of the screen and I realized that and so I went to rotate the edge of my monitor out of camera shot and knocked a empty water bottle that made it
Metal.
that decided to go bouncing across the floor
Great.
off the back of my desk.
Next comes the dogs to come and investigate what happened. See, I don't have
I
that
don't
problem in my house.
so Eddie is upstairs and Stella has wedged herself into this really weird corner over by the chair where she is completely knocked out and Malachi is guarding the entrance to the room.
Yeah.
So we're good. We're good. The crazy one is off somewhere else.
Let me know when you are ready to
I'm
begin
ready.
making our show.
I'm gonna double check what mic I'm using because I screwed that up the other day. Have you ever like done an entire recording using the wrong mic and then hated everything?
Only like once 8 years ago.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
And we're
I
very
am.
lucky now because if we need to, Susie can and has pulled the audio from the YouTube video many times.
It's just not as good.
Not
So,
quite, no. It's close though.
okay,
All right.
we are ready.
Yeah, I'm ready to press record.
I am recording on the correct microphone. Even.
Yay! I'm also recording. Okay, here we go. Astronomy Cast, episode 564, Mini Moons. Welcome to Astronomy Cast, our weekly facts-based journey through the cosmos, where we help you understand not only what we know, but how we know what we know. I'm Fraser, Cain, publisher of Universe Today, and with me, as always, is Dr. Pamela, a senior scientist for the Planetary Science Institute and the director of CosmoQuest. Hey, Pamela, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Fraser?
Again, with the caveat of the apocalypse, I am doing great. I am staying busy. I am learning Chinese. I am gardening. Our mason bees have come out of their hidey holes, and now they're starting to pollinate our plants. Hanging out, playing a lot of video games, hanging out with my kid. While my other kid is out there on the front lines. It's surreal, and we're getting through it.
That's all any of us can possibly do at this point.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so last month, astronomers announced that they had detected a tiny asteroid that had been captured by the Earth's gravity well and had been sharing our orbit for a few years. Today, let's talk about the smallest moons in the solar system. All right, Pamela, what is, like, what's the line when you've got a moon, like obviously Titan, the moons,
Yeah.
Ganymede, they're big, they're round, they're moons.
Yeah.
A piece of dust that is going around the Earth, is that a moon?
No.
When does it become a moon?
Well, so the reason I went no to the piece of dust is because that doesn't fully count as a geologic object yet. It's just a piece of dust. I think you need to be at least a few meters in size.
Right.
But when it comes to a mini moon, what I love about these things is they kind of fit in your garage.
Yeah.
And I think any astronomical object smaller than a house,
Yeah.
calling it mini is
Yeah.
totally legit.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay, so before we go any deeper into this, I need to at least lodge a protest with the name Mini Moon, because we, for many years on Universe Today, it's been one of our writer guidelines that the opposite of a supermoon is a mini moon.
Oh.
So in other words, if you're gonna, so this is a term coined by Dave Dickinson so the supermoon is the when
the moon is closest to the Earth.
Yeah. So when you got the moon closest to the Earth and the moon is full, then you get a supermoon. And then the opposite of that, where the moon is the farthest and it's a full moon, that we have been calling a mini moon.
Yeah, and that's apogee and perigee.
That's right.
Syzygy is related to the sun.
And so we were trying to get that term to stick. And then
you
a
failed.
month ago, everybody started calling this little moon mini moon, and we're done. But I still hold out for Milkdromeda. So again, that is like seriously, you write for Universe Today, you call it Andromeda Way, you're gone. You fired. You call it Milkomedia, just give me your resignation. So that's just the way I run Universe Today with an iron fist. But I know with Mini Moon, I can't. I just can't.
You lost.
I just can't. I can't fight this one. Yeah. So let's talk about then. Okay. So all right. So we're gonna make that definition something that, it's still a moon if it just barely fits into your garage.
Yeah.
I think that's a great definition. Yeah. Yeah. If it landed on you, it would kill you.
That is probably the best definition.
Perfect. Okay, then we've decided. Okay, if it lands on you and it can kill you, then it is a moon.
Yes.
Perfect.
And this all goes back to the idea that we called everything going around the earth a satellite before we had man-made satellites, and then our moon was the biggest of these satellites. And then humanity got a little bit screwed up because we started making our own stuff and shoving it in orbit, and those were called satellites. And people started to think there's the moon, that's a natural object, and then there's satellites, there's man-made objects. And this idea that satellites were just things in orbit got lost. So we needed a new world, a new word for these worlds. And mini moon was what folks came
Yep.
up with. And the one that we found recently isn't like the first one or anything. It's just the most recent. Back in 2006, the good folks at the Catalina Sky Survey, who are out there trying to protect us from falling rocks, and they found one of these back in 2006. And as all good mini moons do, it flew away. And it turns out the one that was found this year has also left our orbit as of March 20th. So we are currently without, ever so temporarily, a mini moon that we know about.
That we know about, but it could very well be
Yes.
that there are many of these femtomoons. Someone is calling in the chat. I'm going to do everything I can to not use this term. So yeah, so we've got these
Yeah,
femtomoons,
I like that.
and they are captured temporarily by the Earth's gravity well, and they spend a little time in our vicinity. Now, are they just orbiting around the Earth just like the moon does, or is their orbit a little more peculiar?
Um, I'd say chaotic is the word we want. These objects are generally coming in from an orbit that probably originated as far out as the asteroid belt, but they got perturbed along the way and got sent at just the right velocity, that they got snagged up by the Earth's gravity, the moon's gravity, by the Earth moon system's gravity. And they went from being purely orbiting the sun to orbiting in this messy spiral graph pattern that wove them around the earth, sometimes around the moon, depends on the object, in a way that's constantly changing and precessing as it interacts with the different gravities. This is your quintessential unstable multi-body system.
Right.
To the moon, the earth is the biggest thing out there, and it's happy to orbit us from here to kingdom come. Earth, moon, sun, not really a three body problem because you can reduce the earth and moon to two bodies that are together
Mm-hmm.
chugging around the sun. But these little rocks are like, oh, expletive. I see the moon, it has a large effect on me. I see the earth, it has a large effect on me. And I was already on an elliptical orbit around the sun. And so they tend to come in, get caught for a little while, and then end up just sort of going back around the sun.
Right. And so, I mean, it didn't take a lot of energy, change in energy, for it to fall into orbit around the Earth, and it doesn't take much of a change of energy for it to fall back out of orbit around the Earth and back to the sun. So this most recent object, how big do astronomers think that it was?
It was a couple of meters. It was basically the size of like a large boulder you might climb at a
Right.
park without worrying that you were going to fall off the large boulder.
A car, a
Yeah,
washing
and
machine. Yeah, I've heard like washing machine, car, something, something that you could
it
give
was
a hug to.
probably a couple of meters.
Right.
So like 2 feet on it, not 2 feet,
Yeah.
2 meters on its long axis, maybe.
Yeah.
Not big, just big enough to see, basically.
But we are seeing these, objects like this, not just around the Earth. And of course, this is the first time that we've seen them. We're also seeing fairly small objects that are doing interesting things at other objects in the solar system as well.
And the idea is that because our solar system went through traumatic times like the Great Heavy Bombardment that scattered chunks of world in all directions, we have these 1, 2, 3 meter class objects on random trajectories all over our solar system, just waiting to get put into orbits, in some cases, even around some of the largest moons. It is numerically possible
Right.
for Ganymede to capture one of these and have a mini moon orbiting the moon around a big world, in which case we refer to the mini moon not as a mini moon because it's now orbiting a full sized moon, and it becomes what in one Earth and Sky article was referred to as a moon, and everyone embraced the topic without realizing that moon was a really silly wolf related meme.
We go with
The-
tune. A tune.
I have not heard this one.
Yeah, that's
Tell me
my
more.
that's my favorite term. Again, as an editor, I get to enforce this terminology with an iron fist, and so I really like tune. So you got a moon, and then you got a tune, and the tune is a moon that goes around a moon. Should we have clarified the terminology before we even started the show? No, I think this is half the fun of this episode. So
It is true.
so
We
what?
need more laughter in our lives right now, and this is the laughter we're going to go with. I like moon because it means every time I Google moon, I get lots of dorky pictures of wolves doing really silly things.
Well, the thing so the Canadians in the audience will know why I like the term tune. Which is that in Canada, our $2 coin, okay, hold on. Our $1 coin is called a loon,
Yes.
right? Because it's got the bird on it. And so we call the $2 coin a toonie, even though it has a polar bear on it.
All
And
right.
yeah, and I love Canadian money, Canadian coins, because they feel like gold
Real money.
medallions. Yeah, it just feels like you've got if I hand you like a whole bunch of loonies, right? They're these beautiful little gold coins, and you've got a handful of gold. It's like you're a pirate. Yar.
Yeah.
And
It feels like
yeah.
for those in the US, if you've ever had a Susquehanna dollar,
Yeah.
it feels like the Susquehanna gold dollar
Yeah.
coins.
So anyway, tune. But it's actually like a tune or a moon has never been found. And you would think, I mean, we think about the universe, right? We think about how you've got galaxies going around galaxy clusters. You've got stars going around galaxy cores. You've got
Ida
planets.
and Dactyl.
You've got planets, right? And you've got asteroids with their own moons, which I was going to talk about Didymos in a second as well. And yet we don't see. It seems like it seems to stop at that point. Like we don't see planets with moons, and then those moons have moons. Although, is say the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter currently orbiting around the moon? A moon.
Moon.
Yeah, a tune.
So this is where we have to remember that little LRO has to keep correcting its orbit. And this is part of the problem. In order to not experience the chaos of the three body interaction, these new tiny objects flying in have to snuggle up into one gravity well or the other. So they can either snuggle in right next to the Earth, they can snuggle in right next to the moon. And whichever one of those two places they go, they're going to get lost in, well, all the other stuff that's either there or lost in the glow of that object. So if there was one of these little 2-meter objects orbiting the same way LRO was, first of all, it wouldn't be entirely stable because it doesn't have anything this. But second of all, it would be really hard to see because it would be right next to the super bright moon. And if the moon isn't super bright, then it's super close to the sun and would get lost in the glare of the sky.
Yeah, but
And the
I
same
think
problem happens with other worlds.
Yeah, and I think you really hit the nail on the head there, which is that LRO, which has been nicely in orbit around the moon for quite a while now, is having to continuously reboost itself. Even though it's not moving through any kind of atmosphere, it is getting its orbit changed over time through the interactions of the Earth and the moon. And so without those changes, it would just be a matter of time before it crashed into the moon, like all the others have, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it becomes hard to find one of these tiny objects in the light of Ganymede on the other side of our solar system. It becomes hard to even find them in the light of our own moon. And so they could be out there and we're just not seeing them, just as they've always been around our Earth. It's thought that we pretty much always have one or more of these meter class objects orbiting our world and or the moon for a few years at a time here and there. But
I've
we're only just starting to find them.
I've heard that the best place to search for objects like this is actually Neptune. So Neptune is low enough mass and Triton is large enough mass compared to Neptune and
Mm.
far enough away that in theory Triton could have its own moons and be relatively stable for long periods of time without the interactions, because the same problem that we're having with the Earth's moon and it trying to have any kind of satellite around it is that the Earth is really dominant compared to the moon. And then if you had Jupiter, like, yeah, Jupiter has tons of moons, but any moon orbiting its moons are going to be pushed around by the gravity of Jupiter. But you could, the way the gravity well works out at Neptune, you could actually have that. But let's imagine that there was no sun, that there was just, say, a planet like Jupiter or a planet like Neptune, just floating, a rogue planet out there in space, and it had its own moon orbiting around it far enough away. Would a moon tune be more stable at that point?
Well, it's still a three to body problem. So it depends on exactly where it snuggles in. So with Triton, which, as a reminder to everyone out there, is bigger than Pluto, which has not one, not two, but a bunch of moons, of which Charon is the largest. With Triton, it's big enough that it can, as you say, have things far enough away from its surface to have nice stable orbits. And it's far enough away from Neptune to also have stable orbits. But those objects would have to be reasonably close for this three body problem to not be a special form of hellscape. You have to essentially reduce the
Right.
three body problem by negating the gravity of something because it's just negligible compared to the thing you're primarily orbiting. So, International Space Station, it's good. It does not see the gravity of the moon in a way we need to worry about. It's nice and low. Even geosynchronous, not that bad because our moon is so far away from us. Now, the issue is our moon isn't generally huge, and I have to admit I don't know what the comparison between the moon and Triton for mass is. Do you happen to know that?
No, no.
There's going to be a moment you're going to need to remove, Susie. We're sorry.
Oh, there's times like this when I go to Wolfram Alpha for this. Then you just type in mass of Triton divided by mass of the moon.
That works.
I love Wolfram Alpha.
All right, so go after it. Tell me the
Okay, hold on.
result. All right.
The answer is 0.29. So Triton is 29% the mass of the moon.
So Triton would still have the problem with things not being entirely stable around it unless they were very precisely put there.
Right. And I think that's the point, that Neptune's
Yeah.
mass isn't overwhelming in the way, you would have to do some very serious solar system re-architecture to make everything get pushed around. But the other thing that I find, like, people always ask me this question on my YouTube channel. They say, like, what if we removed a planet? How would that destabilize the solar system?
It wouldn't.
It wouldn't. It would be better. It would
Yeah.
improve everything, right?
Yeah. You have fewer things that are tugging and pulling things around. So Neptune's just 17 times the mass of the Earth. And because it is physically so much larger and Triton is just barely held onto, it's thought that Triton is a captured Kuiper Belt object. And lots of planetary scientists are desperate to get a spacecraft out there that is capable of turning that hard left to go into orbit around Neptune. Uh, Triton should be geologically as active or more active than Pluto. We want to go see it,
Yeah.
and it's its own little world, but it was caught up in Neptune's gravity.
Now you mentioned this earlier on in the episode, and I pushed right past it, which is just this idea that for a place like the Earth, having tiny moons be in relatively stable orbits is very difficult with the three body interactions.
Yeah.
But when you look at places like tiny asteroids, they can have small moons that are in perfect stability.
And that's not a three body problem anymore. That is, as far as Dactyl is concerned, as it orbits Ida, the sun is dead to it. The same way our own moon is pretty much ignoring the sun because the Earth's tug is the primary one that matters. So Dactyl is nice and happy, orbiting around Ida, no big deal. It's as objects get bigger and as they come together such that they have disparate orbits such that they both start out orbiting the sun, that there's this moment of I don't know what I'm gravitationally attracted to, and they may temporarily dance, but then it all falls apart because the sun is still a dominant player and the velocities aren't right, and
Yeah.
three bodies are ugly.
Yeah, so there's a mission that I'm really fascinated by, and this is NASA's DART mission,
Yes.
which is the I forget the term, defense against asteroid impact and deflection assessment. Anyway, they're going to send
double asteroid redirection test.
There we go. Double asteroid redirection test. And so the plan is that NASA in 2023 or 2021.
Don't believe that,
yeah.
folks. Do
yeah,
not
I know,
believe
I know,
that.
I know. All dates are just out the window now. But they're going to be sending a mission to this double asteroid called Didymos, which the main asteroid is, I forget the mass, not much.
Again,
Tiny.
we're going to look things up and
Yeah.
you're going to edit this, Susie, and we're very sorry.
So the main, let me get its size. Is the important part.
So Didymos, so DART, this double asteroid reconnaissance test, or sorry,
0.78
let me start that over.
Right.
DART, this double asteroid redirection test, is going to Didymos, which is a binary asteroid where the primary one is 700 meters in diameter and the smaller one is just 163 meters in diameter, and they're about a kilometer apart. And DART's going to take that smaller asteroid, which is still like 10 times bigger than the mini moon going around the Earth.
Right.
But it's going to take that tiny asteroid, which is still big enough that you really don't want it hitting the Earth. And it's going to see what it can do to move it. Now, the nice thing about this mission is Didymos, this binary system, is not an Earth crossing asteroid. So if they screw up, we are not in danger.
Or super successful. If they're incredibly,
let's not think about that.
If they're incredibly successful and really push this tiny moon
directly at us,
yeah, well, it can't, right? So no matter how successful they are, they can't actually make this system impact the Earth. But the point is that they're going to take a 170 meter across chunk of space rock and significantly attempt to change its velocity and calculate what that impact is. And it shows us for the first time. We've been talking about methods of mitigating asteroid impacts for almost the entire time that we've been doing Astronomy Cast, right?
Yes.
What are all the different ways to move an asteroid? But nobody's ever tried one. And so finally,
I really wish they'd
one.
go out and spray paint it, though, because really, that's the best way in terms of silliness.
They should take like a Banksy stencil and go out there and spray paint the asteroid appropriately. So do we think that some of the larger moons would have formed starting with these mini moons and then they built up over time, or or are the larger moons in the solar system like a separate formation event?
The moons in general came about in three different ways in our solar system. You have the ones like Triton, like Deimos and Phobos, like many of the outer Saturnian and Jovian moons that were kidnapped. These are objects that happily formed on their own, weren't necessarily big enough to hit hydrostatic equilibrium and become spheres. And they had their own lives going before they gravitationally got captured up and turned into moons. Now, the other way that you can get a moon is the way we got our own Earth. Two things collide, something goes splush, and that splush comes back together to form a moon. And then you have all the moons that probably formed in situ around the giant gas giants, Jupiter, Saturn. These particularly large ones could have, we now believe, formed in the, well, planetary nebula isn't really the best of terms, but I'm not sure what other phrase to use within that swirling cloud of dust and gas that was forming the gas giants in its core, but still had eddies and vortices of material going around it that went on to form those moons. So it's only with these giant planets that you can have the moons forming in situ. Otherwise, well, they can still form in situ if you break a couple of things up, like, well, the Earth and Themis did to make our moon, or Thea rather did to make our moon, or you just have to steal things.
Right, right. And of course, we go back to the Vera Rubin telescope, which
Yes.
is again opening
It's the
dates.
Vera Rubin Observatory. The
Observatory.
telescope has a completely different name, and it's
That's
going to
right.
stay
Yeah.
LSST to
Right,
me.
right, right. Yeah. So the Vera Rubin Observatory opening, now, who knows when, of course,
Yeah.
um, will be a really powerful tool for finding these objects, especially around the Earth. I'll bet you, as soon as that thing opens up its eyes, we will suddenly discover that we have many of these little objects buzzing around us all the time, and we can watch them come and go with almost certainty, which is sort of an amazing idea. So
And until then, when it can, the Catalina Sky Survey is going to be out there trying to keep us safe and at least having fun finding silly things we give sillier names to.
right. Pamela, thank you. Do you have any names for us this week?
I do. As always, we are here thanks to the generous contributions of folks like you. And right now, in these crazy times, we're particularly grateful for what you do as our patrons. So thank you for still being there to help us get through these strange times. And this week, our thanks go out to Brian Nelson, Kristen Brooks, Eric Feringer, Martin Dawson, Kenslia Penflienko, Dwayne Isaac, Frodo Tenenbaum, Shannon Humber, Justin Proctor, Thomas Tubman, David Gates, Rachel Fry, Iran Segev, Frederick Sijorg, Claudia Mastriani, Neuter Dude, Paul L. Hayden, Omar Del Riviero, Brent Krenop, Tim Garish, Arthur Latz Hall, William Andrews, Jack, Mark Grundy, William Lauer, Jeremy Kerwin, and thank you, all of you, for everything you do that allows us to do what we do.
All right, we'll see you all next week.
Bye bye, everyone.
Save.
And now we save.
564.
Yep. Just need to make sure I stick it in the correct directory.
Direct it correctly.
Yes. So while we're doing this, I'm just going to say to all of you who are hanging out online, I am about to run a massive sale on paintings and jewelry that I have made, but only for my patrons. So if you are a patron at the $1 or more level on patreon.com/starstrider, I'm going to have a studio cleaning sale because I just got a bunch more acrylic, which means I can do a bunch more paintings, but I'm going to need room in my drying racks. So, my wealth of stuff and things can become yours, but this is only open to patrons.
I want to give everybody a reminder tonight. They need to go out
Mm-hmm.
and look at Venus passing through Pleiades.
Just the edge of it. It's
Yeah.
going to be a gorgeous. It's not going to like nuzzle in between the seven sisters, but instead Venus is going to be like, "Hey, I'm here to
Yeah.
party," and they're going to be like socially distanced, and that's how it's going to work.
But there will be pictures, I'm sure, that'll
Yeah.
have both Venus and Pleiades in the same shot. Although that'll be really tough to get the exposure right. So there's going to be some cool kind of HDR attempts. I'm sure
Yeah.
some stacks.
Yeah. It's going to be awesome though.
All right. So has anybody got any questions? Cujo and Friends ask, can we expect to find similar moons around other gas giants in other solar systems? We can't even find moons in other solar
Yeah.
systems yet.
Wait, hold on. I just got a message I need to say something too.
Right. So the question
So we
was
do think we found one moon in another solar system, maybe thanks to
maybe.
gravitational lensing,
Yeah.
but microlensing events are the only way we can possibly sort these out.
Do rings naturally produce shepherd moons, or do the rings form around them? Oh, that's an interesting question.
I don't think anyone understands the dynamics well enough to say with certainty. Like people are still arguing on whether Saturn's moons are permanent or transitory.
Right. Yeah. So this idea, I mean, we think about rings and there are these shepherd moons that are like blobs of ice that are moving through the rings, carving out channels in the rings. And I guess the question is, was it just like a fluke of various particles coming together into larger and larger objects to whatever is the largest possible object that would remain stable in that environment? Or was it always a chunk of
No
ice
idea.
that happened to make its way into this region? It's being torn apart into rings and still
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's one of these things where we don't know the ordering of when different things arrived and what formed and what didn't.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Lewis Lightson asks, isn't a Neptune flyby being considered in the decadal survey?
Yeah, but
Yes.
decadal survey versus reality, not the same thing. So if we have a president who's like, we're going to Mars, all money goes to Mars.
Right.
I remember a decadal survey a number of years ago where we had a president and a NASA administrator who said, no Mars for you. And the representatives from NASA during the NASA town hall at LPSC were like, all you scientists currently studying Mars, you need to find another world to study. Clearly not the case right now. So
Yeah.
this unfortunately is one of those few times where science is depending on the whims of the current administration.
One of the few times that this ever happened.
Well, so Congress critters usually don't care if you study black holes versus neutron stars. They're not going to have opinions on that
Right.
other
Right.
than maybe they find pulsars cooler. I don't know. But it's not going to be the kind of thing where there's line item dictates unless they really hate something like W first, because apparently dark energy is a conflict with big coal. I don't know. Uh,
That's
our
funny.
country's so weird. But in general, you don't have to worry about the decadal survey wishes getting overrun by Congress critters, except in the planetary science community.
Right. And in general, it's about
Science
sending humans,
priorities.
yeah, sending humans to Mars, sending humans to the
Yeah.
moon, and sending humans to Mars, and whatever can support that effort. But yeah, NASA announced six new missions that it is seriously considering. One of which being a mission to one of the ice giants, two missions to Venus, which is great.
Yeah.
One an atmospheric one a surface scan, like an advanced version of Magellan. And so there's a bunch of really interesting missions that are in
And these are still
consideration.
getting finalized. The decadal survey is not done yet.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. No, we're still way, and as well as the next round of great observatories. There's a bunch of new additional telescopes that are being considered. So we are still a year away from knowing what's going to be the final recommendations across. But it's one of my, we had a great time years ago talking
Yeah.
about the last decadal survey, and it was sort of
Yeah.
early on in our Astronomy Cast career, and
Yeah.
now, and you were part of the decadal survey, as were many of your peers, to
Yeah.
help define those requirements. And like what W first, I think, was one of the outcomes from the
It
decadal survey,
was.
right? Yeah.
And this is, like I said, one of the clear examples of what you wish for, you don't always get.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and W first has to fight for survival every year, but still, I mean, to be able to have W first would be great. And
Right.
then for this decadal survey, they're thinking about what comes after
Yeah.
W first, like
And
Louvoir.
it's cool.
Yeah, yeah. What I mean, right now, what are you going to be advocating for in the decadal survey?
So to be fair, I was part of the astronomy one, not the planetary one
Yeah, yeah,
before.
yeah, yeah.
And now I've largely transitioned my career into planetary. And I think the things that matter most to me and that I'm somewhat flummoxed by are there used to be a lot more career development. These are the things in our field that we need to change that were discussed, and those have been completely eliminated.
Hmm.
So I think I'm going to be on the sidelines screaming for we need to be careful we don't abuse our young people. But in terms of what science, I'm largely agreeing with what's coming out. We haven't been to Venus hardcore yet.
Yeah.
And we're starting to develop the technologies that we can do a much better job than, well, what was done with Magellan in the 90s. And that was just a radar mission.
And it is really interesting how much Venus was considered just a write off,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I think everyone was just so bitter because up until we got there in 62, people were pretty darn certain that Venus was going to just be a tropical hot place
Yeah.
capable of supporting life. And then we got there, and you better believe bitterness set in.
Right.
Well, that generation isn't the one writing the decadal survey right now. So
Yeah.
less emotional baggage attached to
Right.
the hot
Right.
world.
Yeah. And so you can see these people are like, oh, it's not a jungle world, so forget
Right,
about it,
right.
right? And you can see the young researchers saying things like, check it out. It doesn't have
Yeah.
any, doesn't seem to have any volcanism on it. Check it out.
Yeah.
There's no or constant
The,
resurfacing. Check it out.
well,
How do you get
and
an
there
atmosphere
is
that thick,
evidence.
etc.
There is evidence that it has current volcanism,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
And there's models that show that it was habitable all the way up until a point at which we already had life on our world.
Yeah.
So there could be fossil hunting on Venus legitimately.
That there were, yeah, there could be fossil hunting on Venus. That there were essentially the conditions on Venus could have been conducive to life up until just a few 100 million years ago. It could be possible.
Yeah.
So more research necessary, and fine.
Yeah.
You're not gonna prance about on the surface like you can on Mars, but it's a very interesting place to go, and we really do need to go back.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah. Then we push the Venus into the sun. Right.
It's a bit big. It might be hard to do that.
True. Ben Kalo asks, in reference to last week's show on white dwarf mergers, if it turns out that standard candle measurements are not so reliable, is a possible implication that the universe is not expanding at an accelerating rate?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the implication.
And what I'm going to be interested to see is how it pans out, since they already gave the Nobel Prize for the discovery of dark energy. If dark energy doesn't exist, is that team, who are still prominent individuals,
Sure.
going to be able to let go of this thing
Does-
that rewarded their careers so heavily?
Has that ever happened?
I don't think so.
Has anyone ever taken your Nobel Prize away again?
well, I don't think they take it away, but there is a history in astronomy of people refusing to accept major changes. Uh, Famously, Eddington did not want to believe in some of the degenerate objects that Chandrasekhar was postulating. And it wasn't until Eddington died that, well, Chandrasekhar was able to get the Nobel Prize for the research he'd done.
Right.
So here we have the opposite case of they already gave the Nobel Prize, and are they going to be able to step aside and say, okay, universe is different than we thought?
Right. Right.
We don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's, and just to sort of reference last week's show, this idea that the earlier white dwarfs are different, the
On
earlier
average.
exploding white dwarfs are different on average than the ones that happen later on in the universe. And so what looks like a standard distance, a standard candle, is actually not standard at all. And then your ability to use it to measure kind of goes out the window. But that is the amount of observations that have been done of these type 1a supernova is pretty big. And so it's a fascinating idea, but it's going to require a lot of observational evidence and a lot of theory and modeling and
bigger telescopes.
like W first, right? So please don't cancel W first. We need it, as well as other dark energy surveys.
It's true.
Yeah. It's an important question.
So it is what it is.
Yeah.
We shall see.
Yeah.
We shall see.
Arjun asks, was the gateway canceled?
Yes.
It was?
I think so. Last I looked.
No. Yeah.
It was
off. It's off. The Lunar Gateway was canceled?
I think so.
No.
That's what I saw.
When?
Like a week ago?
They moved it off the critical path.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they canceled it from the set of required missions. So what they said was Artemis and landing on the moon with humans to meet Donald Trump's deadline no longer requires building of the Lunar Gateway, which was reliant on the Space Launch Systems, which does not yet work.
Right. And so the plan was humans to the Lunar Gateway, and then from the Lunar Gateway down to the surface of the moon, and then back up to the Lunar Gateway, and then back home.
And instead they're just recreating Apollo.
And then instead they're just recreating Apollo. And I know a lot of people poo-poo the Lunar Gateway, but I actually
needed it.
I'm a fan of the Lunar Gateway because it is the next step to a more sustainable sort of existence farther away from the Earth.
Or interplanetary.
And so you're flying from the Earth to the Lunar Gateway, you're living at the Lunar Gateway, you're experiencing what it's like to be far away from the Earth and yet not super far away.
You have to figure out protection from radiation.
You're building more reusable parts. You've got the ferry that takes you to and from the lunar surface. You've got the lander. You've got the ascent stage. Almost all of that now becomes reusable. So really, all that's different with each mission is just propellant to get you through each phase of the mission. And so then, if you go and just go straight to the surface of the moon, you throw out all that, and you just are now suddenly. And hey, the idea for Starship would be great, right? Fly a spaceship, launch off Earth, land on the moon, fly back home.
Did you see the video?
Yes.
Did you see the video?
Yes.
Last night's video, people, if you haven't seen it yet, the best idea they have so far of what happened is they didn't put enough stuff in the lower part of Starship, so when they filled the top part, it just crumpled.
Yes.
And the video is fabulous for how much it failed.
Yeah. And if that's true, so Musk was saying that if that's true, then that's an easy fix. That essentially they set up a test environment where they were testing one part of it, essentially the ability for it to handle the cryofuels and the pressures, and they weren't thinking about how much gravity would be pulling down on that, and so it was top heavy and crumpled. And if that's the case, then it's an easy fix. But
I'm sure fill it with stuff.
I'm sure
someone
Musk
got their head handed.
I'm sure Musk is so mad because he made a pretty big deal the last couple of times when he's like, you've got to do good welds. You've got to be careful, right? If this isn't going to work, then you got to tell me.
Yeah.
and the fact that the third one failed, right? So now we're on to
Yes.
the fourth prototype. And again, I want to just go back to all the people who just poo-pooed every other space system, right?
Hmm.
Oh yeah, well, when the astronauts land on in 2024, Elon Musk will have already been there for 2 years. Yeah.
Right.
Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe
Well,
this is going to be hard.
so the crazy thing is, one of the reasons that Musk is able to move forward, though, is because they destroy things and learn.
Yeah.
Whereas you look at SLS and they're like, we must get this perfect. We shall build the correct one and it shall go on the first try. And he's just like, we're going to destroy things
Yeah.
in the Texas beach area.
Yeah. Kaboom. Yep.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think that it's wonderful to see these failures,
Yeah.
because this shows you both their attitude as a company about the way they're approaching this, and the fact that you can't learn if you don't
Right.
screw up. And so, you don't want to screw up for reasons that you already knew, right? And,
No,
and
it's,
Gordon is mentioning in the chat, right, how many Falcons didn't self-land properly before they got it right.
oh,
Yeah,
I
you can
know.
watch video after video of Falcons smashing, splatting, splashing, um, yeah, exploding until they finally got the hang of it.
Yeah. It's learning can be a process.
Yeah.
And prototyping is done for a reason.
But at the same time, that don't put your plans on hold expecting this starship to make all your dreams come true.
Right. Right. It's going to take him a while. And he's already, I mean, they launched the BFR once and then he aborted to something entirely different. So you never know with Musk if he's going to stay on track or just build a completely new
Mm-hmm.
track.
Yeah, yeah. He knows in general that he wants to build a two-stage fully reusable rocket system
Yeah.
by any means necessary.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to see.
Exactly.
What's going on in the Pamela sphere that people should keep track of if they want to
Um,
follow your every move?
so, as I said, I'm going to be doing a big sale on my artwork. It'll go up no sooner than Saturday night. And the sale will only be open to patrons. And this is to make room so that I can spend Sunday evenings after I'm done gardening outside. So it's now going to be evenings doing artwork, both physical and digital. And if you want to check out the kinds of stuff I do, um, Twitter, although it gets lost in a whole lot of other stuff, but Society 6, I have a bunch of artwork up. So
Yep.
society6.com/starstrider.
And then, of course, Daily Space is still rolling every
Oh my
day.
goodness. Yes. Yes. So we are putting out the Daily Space Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. That is now once again 6 p.m. London time, where we do a quick rundown of all that's new in space and astronomy, with Wednesdays dedicated to rockets. We are also now doing morning coffee about 10:30 in the morning East Coast time, 7:30 Pacific, where we go through what's new in the world, figure out, well, what's going to go in daily space, figure out what we need to prepare for, interact with, and just drink coffee and warm up to our days.
So on
What's up with
Monday,
you?
I've got Professor Brian Keating is going to be joining me. He is, of course, the principal investigator for the Bicep 2 mission, Bicep 2 Observatory, which incorrectly detected primordial gravitational waves. I interviewed him about a year ago. We had a good time with that. Sort of dug through the ashes
Yeah, poor guy.
of his discovery, and so I think we're just going to talk about cosmology,
Cool.
and he's a big fan of alternative ideas to he's a big fan of a more cyclical universe model, so we'll probably
Yeah,
dig into that a little bit. And then the week after that, I have Dr. Ryan Watkins, who is
she's great.
a lunar researcher. Yeah, one of the sort of renowned world experts on lunar geology, and we're going to talk about what we can find on the moon. So
Sounds great.
plus other shows coming, but as we gear up. All right, Pamela. Well, it's been fun as always. Thank you, everybody, for watching us today. Thanks to everyone in the chat. Thanks to all our moderators. Thanks to everybody watching us over on Twitch as well. We don't see you, but we know you're there. And you're in our...
I see them.
I don't see them. Another chat. That's too many chats, and my brain will explode.
That's right. I'm not seeing YouTube, so we have symmetry.
Oh, there you go. Okay, great. We're fully covered then. Yeah. And we will see all of you next week. Thanks, everyone.
Wash your hands.
Wash
your hands.
Or just don't leave the house.
That actually is what I do.
Yeah, right on. Okay. We'll see everybody.
Bye-bye.